Next up here in our Milford Voter Education Series, we're happy to delve into the role of Housing Authority here in Milford as we continue to get residents educated on all of the positions that are voted on typically in our local election. And we're so pleased to be joined by a member of the Housing Authority, Patrick Holland. Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me here.
So I'd love to open it up, Patrick, with just sort of a broad question, just in your own words. Can you describe the basic roles and responsibilities for the Housing Authority here in Milford?
Sure. So I'm an elected housing commissioner. And so it's our responsibility to manage the housing complexes that we have in the town of Milford that are funded from two different sources. They're funded from this federal funding, so we have federal units, and there's state-funded units. And those are housing units that for people who are in need, seniors first among a lot of the groups that we try and assist with housing. And we make sure that they have safe places to live at an affordable rent, so people can remain in our community and be safe and be warm and be happy.
For you personally, what made you interested in serving in this role in the town?
So I've held a number of roles, both elected and appointed in Milford. I think public service is a very important thing. I think taking care of people who need assistance, who need help, is a very important thing. And people need to sort of volunteer to do these things. And I think it's important. I've served in the school committee. I've worked for the town in several capacities. And I just thought that this was a pretty good position to move into. I took office after Sam Bonasaro, who was a longtime housing authority member. He passed away, and there was an appointment. I was initially appointed, and then I had to run for re-election thereafter. So I've been on, I believe, since 2017, and it's been a great experience.
What's the typical weekly or monthly commitments involved with being part of the Housing Authority?
I think it depends what's happening. So we have a monthly meeting, and most of what we're responsible for is making sure that the budget is spent properly and that we're improving the buildings in such a way that provides value to all of the people that live in our community and live in our buildings, live in their buildings. I mean, I don't want to say they're our buildings; they're their buildings. And so that's a weekly meeting. It's a lot of review of reports, and it's looking at budgets, and it's approving warrants. We also do quarterly reviews of the finances. We have a special accounting company that we use that is specific to housing authorities to help us understand how we allocate some of our resources. It's not always easy to use the federal and the state funds in the right way, and so sort of very, very specific stuff. So that's a monthly commitment. There's some back and forth with the executive director every once in a while, some questions about some policies and things that have to change. Occasionally there are concerns from our residents, and they have chiefly among them parking. Parking always seems to be at a premium, especially when it snows. And so, those people will reach out personally, and we encourage people to reach out personally. I obviously live in the community, and I maintain a home phone number so people can call me if they need to. And I like to think that I'm responsive when they do. And so if there is some sort of a controversy, there's going to be a little bit more time, but I think that's time that we're all happy to spend.
I would imagine that this might be a position that for folks from the outside looking to get involved may say, I don't know if I'm qualified to serve on the Housing Authority. What sort of experience is really helpful for someone to have if they're interested in potentially becoming part of the Housing Authority?
I think like most public offices, it's really based upon your desire. There's a lot to learn with any elected or appointed position, and there are going to be things that you don't know. And you need to have just a willingness to speak with people and engage in the process and educate yourself. So I would say anyone who is a concerned citizen, anyone who has the time to spend and is willing to put the time into the job can learn how to do it. Now, that being said, sure, does some financial competence help? Yes, of course it does. But I think anyone who's willing to engage in the process can absolutely be a successful housing commissioner.
What are some of the more challenging aspects of being part of the Housing Authority?
So probably the most challenging aspect that we have right now is the way the state wants us to allocate our placements, the residents that we house. And so there are a number of complicating factors. There are different priorities. There are families that are in emergency situations. There are veterans who have priority in housing. And so the state maintains a giant database of all of the people who could potentially be interested in housing with the Milford Housing Authority. And so when there is a vacancy and when we do have units that we have to fill with a resident, we have to go through the state's process to make sure all of the people who have priority for that housing get contacted first. And so we need to reach out to great numbers of people when we pull down these lists, and we have to spend a lot of time making contact to find out if they want to come and stay in one of the units in Milford, because many people are on many, many lists. It's not as if a person comes and they apply to one housing authority. They apply to many housing authorities. And so being able to manage that process to make sure that we get the unit filled as quickly as we possibly can, because we don't want excess capacity, and make sure that we give the people who have priority and have rights to those units, they get noticed in a timely manner. That's probably the most difficult thing to manage for us. And I think if you were to speak to any housing commissioner in any housing authority across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they would each say to you that the process is complex and it needs improvement, and it is probably the hardest part of what we do.
In terms of the positives, what are some aspects that you find particularly rewarding about serving in this position?
You know, what's great, honestly, and this is going to sound silly, but seeing the capital improvements to the buildings. You know, we make sure that we just put in new windows for our residents. We put new roofs on a number of our buildings. We repave the parking lot, and all of this stuff. It helps with access for our residents. It makes it easier for them to use our property. It improves their experience living in the Milford Housing Authority. You know, I mean, and these are our friends and our relatives and our family. We want to make sure that these people are safe. And so when you see the capital improvements and you get positive feedback, when you remodel a laundry room and everyone tells you how much better it was in the old laundry room, I mean, those are things that are, I mean, it's the human aspect. When you have an opportunity to sort of touch people and to impact them in a positive way, that's what is the most rewarding part to me. And so I think a lot of that does tie back to the capital improvements that we can do.
Oh, that's outstanding. Well, I would imagine this last question ties in directly to that, but just looking at the big picture as we close out the interview here, Patrick, just looking at the importance of being involved in local government, and whether that's someone out there watching these interviews that may be inspired to serve in one of these roles, or throw their hat in the ring to get elected to one of these positions, or just to get more involved in the voting process or the town meeting process. What can you kind of tell us in your own words the importance of being involved just in general in local government?
The town doesn't run unless the people who live in the town are willing to serve. And all of the positive improvements that we make is because a person decided that they were willing to commit their time to do something to make their community better. And, you know, each of us contribute in our own way to try and do something positive. That's why when you asked me earlier, you know, what are the prerequisites, what are the requirements? You know, the requirements are you have to care about this community and you have to be willing to put some time in to make a positive change. And if you have those two things, if you possess those two things, you can absolutely have an impact on any board, in any elected office in this town. And if you're willing to put the time in, you can absolutely make a difference. And I would encourage everyone, if they have the capacity to do so, to put that time in.
Oh, what incredibly valuable insight you've brought here today, Patrick. We really appreciate it, and we hope that the voters will take that to heart again as we continue to bring this series to make the local election process a little bit more transparent and visible here in the Milford community. But in the meantime, Patrick Holland, thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you.